They arrested him outside a convenience store. Torn clothes, no ID, silent and still. Officer Elena Martinez thought he was just another vagrant. David Chen followed protocol, no questions asked. But then he looked up and said, "Colonel Thomas R. Keene." Everything shifted. They thought he was a nobody. What they didn't know, he was a decorated Special Forces commander about to expose a betrayal that could topple powerful names in Washington. Stick around, because when the defense secretary enters that courtroom, the cuffs won't be the only thing coming off. This wasn't a mistake. It was a warning shot. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time you found this video. Don't miss out on future content by subscribing now. Officer Elena Martinez's fingers trace the polished edge of her badge as she studies the man outside Quickmart. Something in his bearing sets off warning bells, the kind that 15 years on the force has taught her never to ignore. His clothes may be ragged, but his posture screams military precision, a stark contrast to the usual loiterers she removes from this corner. "Got your back," Officer Chen whispers, taking position. The weight of her grandmother's rosary beads in her pocket provides little comfort tonight. Something feels deeply wrong about this situation, but procedure is procedure. Rules exist for a reason. "Sir, we've had complaints about loitering." Elena projects her voice with practiced authority, hand unconsciously moving closer to her taser. The man's eyes lock onto hers, sharp, evaluating nothing like the vacant stares of the homeless she usually encounters here. A chill runs down her spine. The security camera above whirs its red light, blinking steadily. Later, Elena will replay this moment 1,000 times, wondering how she missed the signs. But now she's moving on autopilot, following the procedures that have defined her career. "I need to see some ID." She continues, taking another step forward. The man's military-precise head tilt triggers every instinct she's developed since academy days. But she can't back down now. She has a job to do. Chen moves to flank him, and Elena sees the man's muscles tense microscopically. The rosary beads click against her phone as she shifts position. Her grandmother's voice echoes in her memory. "Misha, things aren't always what they seem." The cuffs click shut with a finality that will haunt her dreams. Above, the camera captures everything. The arrest, the man's quiet dignity, the way he doesn't resist. Within hours, Wang Chui wrong arrest will explode across social media, the footage viewed millions of times. Have you ever had a moment when your entire world shifted beneath your feet? When everything you thought you knew turned to sand? Drop 1. If you've ever had to question everything you believed in. Elena's hand returns to her badge thumb, rubbing the numbers that have defined her identity for so long. "Your name, sir?" she asks protocol, driving her forward even as doubt creeps in. "Colonel Thomas R. Keene." He responds quietly, and something in his tone makes her blood run cold. "You might want to call this in." The night air suddenly feels thick with possibility and danger. Above, the security camera continues its silent witness, recording the moment that will unravel not just Elena's certainties, but expose a web of betrayal reaching all the way to Washington. Elena's grandmother always said the rosary beads would guide her to truth. Tonight, as they click against her badge, she wonders if perhaps they've guided her to a truth she's not ready to face. Want to know how this routine arrest explodes into a national scandal? Hit subscribe and brace yourself, because nothing in Elena Martinez's 15 years of service has prepared her for what comes next. Elena Martinez's fingers traced the worn wooden beads of her rosary, each smooth surface, a stark contrast to the jagged revelations tearing through the briefing room. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across faces that had just hours ago worn expressions of routine certainty. Now uncertainty rippled through the room as the Secretary of Defense's presentation continued each new slide, feeling like another blow to her professional foundation. Colonel Thomas R. Keene. The secretary's voice carried weight that seemed to press Elena deeper into her chair. Distinguished Special Forces Commander, decorated veteran, and one of our most valuable intelligence assets. The words hung in the air like an indictment of her earlier actions. Elena's mind raced back to the convenience store, replaying every moment with excruciating clarity. The colonel's weathered face, deliberately unkempt appearance, the calculated way he had submitted to arrest. It all took on new meaning. He hadn't struggled because he was choosing not to. The realization made her stomach turn. The next slide showed Keene receiving the Distinguished Service Cross. Elena's throat tightened as she recognized the ceremony date, just 3 months ago. How did we miss this? She whispered more to herself than anyone else. The rosary beads clicked softly against each other, a nervous habit she'd developed in academy days when cases went sideways. Her training screamed that something was wrong. Not with the arrest, that had followed procedure perfectly, but with the entire situation. Why would a highly decorated colonel allow himself to be arrested without identifying himself? The question gnawed at her as the briefing continued. Officer Martinez. The secretary's voice snapped her to attention. Your report indicates Colonel Keene made no attempt to reveal his identity during the arrest. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Elena managed her voice steadier than she felt. He remained silent except to comply with basic commands. The memory of his eyes haunted her. Calm, evaluating, almost expectant. The briefing room's atmosphere grew heavier as classified operation details filled the screen. Elena saw missions in regions she'd only read about in situation reports, successes that had saved countless lives. Each new revelation felt like another weight added to her shoulders. Her phone buzzed. Another media request. The arrest video had already leaked, going viral with speculation about police overreach. Elena silently thanked God they'd followed every protocol perfectly, but the growing social media storm felt like the least of their problems. There's more, the secretary continued, and Elena's grip tightened on her rosary. Colonel Keene was scheduled to testify tomorrow in a closed Intelligence Committee hearing. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. A hearing concerning the nomination of Garrett Humes to Director of National Intelligence. Elena's years of training kicked in, connecting dots she wished she couldn't see. A high-ranking officer deliberately allowing himself to be arrested just before testifying about a major intelligence nomination. The pattern was too perfect to be coincidence. Sir. She spoke up, her voice carrying in the silent room. Was Colonel Keene's testimony expected to be favorable to the nomination? The secretary's pause told her everything. That information is classified, Officer Martinez, but I think you're asking the right questions. Elena felt David Chen shift uncomfortably beside her. They'd worked together long enough that she could read his tension without looking. This was bigger than a wrongful arrest. They'd stumbled into something that reached into the highest levels of national security. The rosary beads felt heavier with each passing moment. Elena remembered her academy instructor's words, "Trust your training, trust the system." But what happened when the system itself seemed to be part of the problem? As the briefing concluded, Elena stayed seated, letting others file out. The convenience store footage played on loop in her mind. The colonel's deliberate movements, his knowing eyes. He'd chosen them, she realized. But why? What role were they meant to play in whatever game was unfolding? Her phone buzzed again. Another news alert. The hashtag Montos Keene Arrest was trending nationwide. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the smooth wooden beads between her fingers. Something told her this was just the beginning, and the real storm was still gathering strength. Have you ever felt like you were just a pawn in someone else's game? Type pawn, if you've ever discovered you were part of something bigger than yourself. The fluorescent lights continued their accusatory buzz as Elena stood squaring her shoulders. Whatever was coming, she'd face it with the same dedication that had earned her badge. But for the first time in her career, she wasn't sure if that would be enough. Officer Elena Martinez clutches her phone, watching the footage for the 20th time. The precinct bustles around her, but she can't tear her eyes away from Colonel Thomas R. Keene's face. The careful way he placed his hands behind his back, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Every detail she missed in the heat of the moment now screams of calculation. Her rosary beads click against each other as she paces a nervous habit she thought she'd broken years ago. The viral video has exploded across every platform, Keene's setup trending nationwide. Each notification feels like another nail in her career's coffin. Officer Martinez. The coffee machine gurgles to a stop as Captain Reynolds approaches, his face grave. Intelligence Committee's asking questions. They want to know who authorized the arrest. Elena's stomach drops. She'd followed procedure perfectly. They both had. The convenience store owners call the matching description the calm apprehension. But now, watching the footage again, she sees what everyone else does. A decorated military officer being cuffed outside a 7-Eleven, and her face clear as day leading the arrest. Chen sits at his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen. The timestamp on the viral video shows 6:47 p.m., just 3 hours ago. 3 hours that have turned their world upside down. Look at this. Elena mutters more to herself than Chen. The footage shows Keene reaching for his wallet, but she notices now how he angles his body toward the security camera, ensuring every movement is captured. He wanted this to happen. Her phone buzzes again. Another news alert. Colonel Keene's arrest raises questions about intelligence nominee. The name catches her eye, Garrett Humes. Something clicks in her mind, a connection she can't quite grasp. The rosary beads grow slick in her palm as she scrolls through older footage. There, a glimpse of Keene leaving the Intelligence Committee hearing earlier today. And in the background, Humes, his face a mask of controlled panic. Officer Martinez. The captain calls again. Intelligence Committee's representatives are here. Elena looks up to see two suited figures entering the precinct. The coffee machine starts another cycle, its gurgling somehow ominous now. Her phone shows 9:47 p.m., and she knows. This night is far from over. Have you seen the response? Chen finally speaks, his voice hollow. Keene setup has reached 2 million tweets. They're calling us corrupt, saying we were bought. Elena's fingers tighten around her rosary. She hasn't been corrupt a day in her life. But now she sees how easily perception becomes reality. The footage plays again. Keene's deliberate movements. His careful compliance, the way he looked directly into the security camera. They weren't making an arrest. They were playing their parts in someone else's game. Her phone buzzes with another notification. CNN breaking news. Sources claim Colonel Keene's arrest connected to 15-year-old intelligence operation. The pieces start falling into place. Keene's calculated surrender, Humes's panic, the timing of it all. Elena feels the weight of her badge like never before, understanding now that upholding the law sometimes means being used by those who bend it. Drop 2 if you've ever realized you were part of someone else's plan. The rosary beads click one final time as Elena sets them down. Outside her window, news vans are already gathering their lights, casting long shadows across the precinct parking lot. In 3 hours, a routine arrest has become national news, and she's beginning to understand why. She pulls up the Intelligence Committee hearing footage again, watching Humes squirm in his seat as Keene testifies. Whatever happened 15 years ago, it's about to come to light. And her arrest of Keene was just the first domino to fall. The coffee machine sputters to silence. Elena's phone shows 10:47 p.m., and she knows that somewhere in this city both Keene and Humes are making their moves. She just hopes she and Chen haven't inadvertently helped the wrong side. Officer Elena Martinez stands rigid outside courtroom 4A, her boots planted firmly on the polished marble floor of the federal courthouse. The familiar weight of her service weapon feels different today, heavier like the truth waiting to be unveiled behind those imposing oak doors. Through 15 years of service, she's guarded countless courtrooms, but never has the air felt so charged with destiny. The rosary beads her abuela gave her click softly between her fingers, a sound nearly lost beneath the low murmur of voices inside. She remembers the night they arrested Colonel Thomas R. Keene, how his calm demeanor had struck her even then. Now it all makes sense. "All rise." The bailiff's voice booms through the corridor. Elena's hand instinctively tightens around the beads as Garrett Humes' legal team sweeps past their expensive suits and practiced sneers, a stark contrast to Keene's dignified solitude. Inside, Keene's testimony rings clear and unwavering. On July 14, 2008, Garrett Humes orchestrated the compromise of Operation Silverlight. 12 operatives died because he sold information to foreign interests. Elena closes her eyes, remembering Keene's words during his arrest. "Sometimes justice needs patience." She'd dismissed it then as the ramblings of a cornered man. Now each word falls like a hammer striking truth from stone. "Aha!" The defense attorney's voice cuts through her reflection, dripping with rehearsed incredulity. "And we're supposed to believe a disgraced colonel over a decorated intelligence nominee?" Something snaps inside Elena. 15 years of following protocol dissolves in the face of naked injustice. She steps into the courtroom, her voice steady despite her thundering heart. "Your Honor, I request permission to testify." The judge's gavel cracks like a gunshot. "Officer Martinez." Elena moves to the witness stand, feeling Humes' cold stare attempt to freeze her resolve. But she's carried these beads through too many dark nights to falter now. "When we arrested Colonel Keene, he wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He stood with the bearing of a man who'd carried a terrible truth for far too long. His hands were steady when we cuffed him, steadier than mine are now." She holds up the rosary beads. "My grandmother taught me that justice and truth are sacred duties. Colonel Keene's eyes that night, they were the eyes of a man fulfilling such a duty." The courtroom erupts in whispers. CNN's live feed captures every word as Takicho Humes' truth explodes across social media. Elena watches Humes' facade crack, revealing the terror beneath. Drop 3 if you believe in standing up for truth, no matter the cost. She returns to her post outside, but everything has changed. The heavy doors no longer creak with accusation. They sing with vindication. Her phone buzzes constantly as the story goes viral, but Elena simply holds her beads and keeps her vigil. Because sometimes justice needs more than patience. Sometimes it needs someone to step forward and speak. And tonight, as the jury deliberates, and Ontwarshark Humes' truth trends worldwide, Elena Martinez knows she's done exactly that. Share this video if you believe one person's courage can change everything. Comment below. When did you last stand up for what's right? Officer Elena Martinez stands at the courthouse steps, her fingers absently tracing the worn surface of her badge. 15 years of certainty crumble around her as she watches Colonel Thomas R. Keene emerge into the sunlight, his head held high. The same man she'd handcuffed outside that convenience store just days ago. An arrest that had seemed so righteous at the time. The media frenzy erupts, cameras flashing like lightning strikes against the granite courthouse facade. Martinez feels each flash like a personal rebuke. From Humes' betrayal, trends on every screen the story of Garrett Humes' deception spreading faster than wildfire across social media platforms. Officer Martinez. A reporter thrusts a microphone toward her face. How does it feel to know your arrest led to exposing one of the biggest intelligence cover-ups in recent history? Her throat tightens. The rosary beads in her pocket, her grandmother's final gift, press against her thigh. She'd always thought they were meant to remind her of her family's faith, but now she understands their deeper meaning. Sometimes faith means admitting when you're wrong. The truth is, she manages her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I made a judgment that night based on what I thought I knew. But Colonel Keene... She pauses, watching him embrace his family across the courthouse plaza. He was protecting something far bigger than any of us understood. The evidence against Garrett Humes plays on every news channel. The doctored intelligence reports the orchestrated smear campaign against Keene, the years of calculated deception. Martinez remembers the moment she'd realized her arrest had accidentally cracked open this Pandora's box, how her certainty had dissolved into horror as the real story emerged. A soft chime from her phone. Another news alert. The Senate Intelligence Committee has just withdrawn Hume's nomination. In the crowd, she spots David Chen, her partner that fateful night, looking as shaken as she feels. Sometimes, she says more to herself than the reporters, justice comes from admitting our mistakes. She unclips her badge, studying its surface in the afternoon light. It represents something different now. Not just authority, but responsibility. The responsibility to question, to listen, to understand. The courthouse steps empty as the story moves on to its next chapter. Martinez remains watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of redemption. Her grandmother's rosary beads catch the light, and she finally understands their lesson. Faith in justice means accepting that truth can arrive in unexpected packages, wearing faces we least expect. Have you ever misjudged someone only to discover a deeper truth? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story of unexpected justice moved you, hit like and subscribe for more moments where truth prevails in the most surprising ways. The badge in her hand catches one final ray of sunlight. Tomorrow she'll wear it differently, with humility, with wisdom, and with the knowledge that sometimes the greatest service to justice is admitting when we're wrong. Type "Truth Prevails" if you believe in the power of unexpected heroes.